There comes a moment in your spiritual journey when you realize not everyone can stay forever. Some people who once felt essential begin to feel distant, not because you changed wrongly, but because God is transforming you, expanding your spirit, and preparing you for higher purposes. Growth is never comfortable, and spiritual elevation always demands separation from stagnant environments. You start noticing conversations that once entertained you no longer nourish your soul anymore. Places that felt like home suddenly feel too small, heavy, and spiritually suffocating for you. It feels confusing because your heart still cares, but your spirit no longer fits there. Many people misunderstand this process, believing distance means pride, betrayal, or a lack of loyalty. But sometimes God removes certain relationships, not as punishment, but as divine protection. He sees the future you're blind to, and He knows who cannot go there. Some people in your life were meant only for a season, not your entire destiny. When the season ends, holding on becomes a burden, and familiarity becomes a prison. You feel the tension between comfort and calling, between staying known and stepping unknown. This conflict is not a sign of failure. It is evidence you're evolving spiritually. Your spirit senses what your emotions refuse to accept. Not everyone can accompany your growth. Growth requires space, and God removes people who limit what He is expanding inside you. Sometimes the people you love most are the very ones slowing your spiritual progression. They encourage what God is trying to remove and resist what God is trying to build. Your spiritual hunger grows, but their appetite remains small, content with shallow conversations. You crave purpose, deeper intimacy with God, clarity, and direction, while they chase distractions. You start seeing life differently, noticing things you ignored, feeling convicted about old habits. You desire purity of heart, humility, obedience, and wisdom, while they embrace comfortable compromise. This difference creates invisible distance, not by anger, but by assignment and spiritual alignment. Your soul recognizes that staying connected to the past delays the future God promised. So God begins disconnecting you, not to isolate you, but to elevate you strategically. They may not understand your transformation, and that's okay, because it's not theirs to understand. You're walking a path God designed uniquely, and others cannot walk where they're not called. Spiritual growth reveals who genuinely walks with you and who only stood beside convenience. Some relationships were built on similarity, not purpose, and they collapse once purpose awakens. The more you grow spiritually, the lonelier it feels, because purpose requires selective company. God isn't taking people away to hurt you. He's making room for divine replacements. He removes those who drain your spirit to send those who strengthen your calling. You are not losing people. You are shedding old layers that cannot survive elevation. When God advances you, He also cleans your circle, because destiny demands purity. Your pain is real, but necessary, because clinging to old relationships blocks your progress. Spiritual expansion demands pruning, and everything God prunes eventually produces greater fruitfulness. Those who refuse growth will always resent those who pursue it courageously with obedience. They see your transformation as an insult, not realizing it's God's invitation to maturity. Separation hurts, but stagnation kills the destiny God placed inside your soul intentionally. This season is not rejection. It is redirection, alignment, and preparation for divine purpose. God is not removing people randomly. He is removing those who cannot handle your future. What feels like loss is actually protection from future pain and delayed potential intentionally. You are stepping into a chapter where only spiritually aligned relationships can exist fruitfully. God surrounds you with people who inspire growth, accountability, intimacy, and authentic faith walk. He replaces opinions with wisdom, noise with clarity, distraction with focus, and comfort with calling. Your elevation will expose who truly loved you and who loved your stagnation. Those who celebrated your weakness will resent your strength when God awakens your purpose. People attached to your past fear your future because your growth exposes their complacency. Letting go is not failure. It is obedience to God's next instruction and direction. Every spiritual promotion comes with spiritual separation because new levels require new voices. Do not mourn what God removed. Mourn what would have happened if you stayed. You cannot carry everyone with you because some people are assigned to old chapters. Your journey demands intentional relationships, not sentimental attachments that hinder divine progress. Many people love who you were, but few can handle who you're becoming. God is shaping you into someone your past connections are not prepared to support. It feels unfair, but spiritual maturity recognizes that destiny has requirements and sacrifices. Your heart must grieve the loss, but your soul must celebrate the growth boldly. This season is not about who left. It's about who God is preparing ahead. You are being repositioned for greater purpose, deeper intimacy with God, and refined character. Every goodbye guided by God is a doorway to a better and more purposeful life. You're not breaking relationships. You're breaking limitations, cycles, and spiritual ceilings around you. Spiritual growth demands discomfort because comfort protects the familiar, but purpose demands transformation. Trust the process, because what feels like separation now will become revelation later. God never subtracts without the intention to multiply something aligned with your destiny soon. Let this truth sink deeply. Losing people is not losing purpose, it's losing what hindered it. The people you outgrow spiritually were never equipped to stay in your new dimension. God is not asking you to abandon them. He is asking you to follow Him. Your future requires obedience, courage, discernment, and willingness to walk alone if necessary. What God is building in you demands focus, conviction, and freedom from draining relationships. Your heart may feel heavy now, but one day you'll thank God for this season, because what felt like loss will become the foundation of your greatest spiritual transformation. The people who cannot grow with you were never meant to remain in your destiny. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of divine alignment. Embrace the separation, not as rejection, but as God's confirmation that elevation has begun. One of the greatest challenges of spiritual maturity is discerning when a relationship has expired. Not every separation is dramatic. Sometimes God simply removes peace to signal your time has ended. You begin feeling drained after conversations, misunderstood in your purpose, and unseen in your growth. Your spirit feels suffocated, and no matter how hard you try, alignment never returns naturally. Discernment teaches you that distance is not always disrespect. It can be divine protection. God will interrupt comfortable connections when those connections hinder your spiritual progress and destiny. You may try holding on, but God shuts doors you cannot force open without consequence. Some friendships are like scaffolding necessary for the building phase, but removed once structure stands complete. If you cling to them, you risk collapsing under the weight of what was temporary. God never asks you to release without reason. He asks you to trust beyond understanding. Your assignment changes as you grow, and not everyone is designed for every season. People who once strengthened you can later become weights, delaying your spiritual acceleration. Discernment helps you recognize when someone supports your calling versus when they sabotage it. Pay attention to conversations. Do they ignite faith or feed fear, jealousy, and spiritual compromise? Relationships aligned with God's purpose will push you toward obedience, holiness, and clarity. Relationships outside God's timing will exhaust you, distract you, and distort your spiritual identity. The Holy Spirit will give gentle warnings long before the separation becomes visible in your life. You start feeling unseen, unheard, or misunderstood because your spirit outgrew their version of you. They knew your history, but God knows your destiny, and destiny requires different company. Never confuse history with destiny. Not everyone from your past belongs in your future. Some people love the old you, but are threatened by the transformed version God created. They benefit from your weakness, but resist your strength, because your growth exposes their stagnation. Your spiritual hunger threatens their comfort, and they label your obedience as pride or rebellion. When someone resents your growth, it's because they never intended to grow with you. God reveals hearts during elevation, because light exposes intentions hidden in familiar relationships. Discernment allows you to see beyond emotion into spiritual assignment and divine alignment. Sometimes God removes people silently, not because they're evil, but because they're incompatible spiritually. He knows your weakness, and He protects you by removing influences capable of derailing purpose. People who refuse transformation cannot handle someone committed to spiritual discipline and obedience. They want companionship without accountability, presence without purpose, and comfort without conviction. But God calls you to connections that challenge you, refine you, and elevate your spiritual life. Healthy relationships celebrate your growth because they see God's fingerprints, not personal competition. Unhealthy relationships minimize your progress because it threatens their excuses and emotional comfort. Discernment teaches you not to fight for what God is removing from your path. If God had plans for them in your future, He would have kept them near. Release becomes easier when you understand separation is not loss, it is God's redirection. Healing starts when you accept that God knows what you do not and sees what you cannot. Some people prayed for your downfall, envied your calling, or spoke doubt into your faith. God heard conversations you never knew existed and removed you before damage was permanent. This is mercy, not heartbreak. God protects your purpose by removing threats disguised as companionship. The wound of separation becomes a doorway into deeper revelation, trust, and intimacy with God. Your heart may ache, but pain becomes a teacher when viewed through spiritual perspective. Healing requires honesty, acknowledging the grief while refusing to idolize what God ended. Letting go is not forgetting. It's releasing the emotional grip that anchors your soul backward. Your spirit cannot rise while your heart clings to people God has dismissed from your story. Forgiveness is essential, not for their sake, but for your spiritual freedom and peace. Unforgiveness attaches you to expired relationships and poisons the soil of your future growth. You cannot walk into destiny while carrying bitterness, resentment, or emotional debts from broken connections. Forgiveness frees your identity from old expectations and releases divine clarity for your next season. Healing becomes possible when you stop asking why they left and start asking what God taught. The lesson is never loss. The lesson is alignment, identity, resilience, and spiritual maturity. God uses separation to detox your soul from approval addiction and emotional dependence on people. You learn that God is enough, even when the world feels painfully empty and unfamiliar. Seasons of isolation are not punishment. They are preparation for relationships aligned with destiny. God removes noise so you can hear His voice more clearly than before and obey Him. He separates you from distraction so you can understand your calling without distortion or compromise. In this process, you do not lose people, you rediscover who truly values your soul. Those meant for your life will pursue growth, honor boundaries, and respect divine transformation. They won't compete with your calling. They will contribute to your purpose and spiritual progress. Your loneliness now will eventually be replaced with divine connections, ordained by God Himself. Kingdom relationships are not built on convenience. They are built on presence, purpose, and covenant. God prunes your circle before blessing your destiny because blessings require safe environments spiritually. You are not being abandoned. You are being escorted into a future requiring upgraded relationships. Healing comes when you stop forcing access to people who no longer recognize your season. Your identity changes, your priorities evolve, and your destiny demands relationships that can sustain growth. God removes who cannot feed your soul, so He can send those who will. Spiritual maturity requires courage to walk away from comfort and embrace God's unfamiliar path. Peace becomes your confirmation. If peace increases after release, the separation was God ordained. You will not heal by returning to what wounded you. Healing requires obedience to God's direction. Your future is too important to be delayed by relationships that lack spiritual alignment or vision. Trust God's pruning, because every removal has purpose, timing, intention, and supernatural protection embedded. Healing begins when your perspective shifts from losing people to gaining clarity, identity, and destiny. You cannot receive what God prepared if your hands are full of what He removed. Release what ended, heal from what hurt, and prepare for who God is sending next. The people you outgrow spiritually are not your enemies. They are chapters that reached completion. When God strips away your illusions, He is not punishing you, but awakening you deeply. The breaking you feel is not destruction. It is the cracking of old spiritual shells. Every shattered expectation is an invitation to see life without comfortable filters. When familiarity dies, clarity is born, and suddenly, truth becomes impossible to ignore. God removes what numbs you, so you finally confront what truly shapes your destiny. He tears down fake security, because fake safety always leads to spiritual paralysis. Growth demands discomfort, because comfort breeds stagnation, and stagnation destroys purpose silently. The wilderness feels frightening, but it is where prophets, warriors, and visionaries are born. Pain becomes purposeful when you realize God is chiseling a new identity within you. Every loss can become holy ground when surrendered to divine transformation, not bitterness. You were never created for a life of predictable patterns and shallow spiritual breathing. The unknown is not empty. It is filled with unseen plans waiting your obedience. When God pulls you away from stability, He's preparing you for supernatural responsibility. Destiny does not grow in safe spaces. It grows in places where fear screams. Faith is not proven where you feel secure. It is proven where you tremble. Your comfort zone protects you from risk, but it also shields you from calling. God removes what you cling to so tightly because it secretly rules your soul. If He doesn't break your false anchors, you will never learn how to fly. When He takes something away, He's clearing space for something eternal and unshakable. Transformation always begins where excuses die and obedience begins despite confusion. The place you fear most might be the soil of your greatest spiritual harvest. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is trust louder than trembling. God does not want you comfortable. He wants you complete, refined, unrecognizable from yesterday. He dismantles comfort not to weaken you, but to reveal the strength He planted. What feels like chaos is actually the divine architecture of your next chapter unfolding. Every step outside comfort exposes hidden fears, and God confronts them one by one. He is not removing things from your life. He is removing limits from your soul. If you stay where it feels safe, you'll never discover who you truly are. The journey requires tears, silence, and confusion, but also revelation, maturity, and authority. God does not allow storms without purpose. Storms sculpt warriors, not spectators. You cannot step into destiny while holding on to identities God never designed for you. He disrupts your plans because His plans would suffocate inside your old mindset. Growth demands surrender, and surrender begins when comfort no longer defines your decisions. Your calling requires a version of you that comfort would never create. Spiritual awakening begins when comfort ends and God becomes your only certainty. He removes everything you depended on, so you finally depend on Him alone. When you lose what you trusted, you find the one who never fails. The breaking is not the end. It is the beginning of divine becoming. The journey is painful, unpredictable, uncomfortable, and absolutely necessary for eternal impact. God is not trying to hurt you. He is rescuing you from smallness. He knows you were created for oceans, not puddles of predictable safety. If your world feels unstable, it is because God is shaking false foundations. Discomfort is evidence that heaven is calling you to a higher spiritual altitude. The comfort zone is a cage disguised as rest, trapping destiny behind fear. You cannot hear God clearly when noise of comfort overwhelms your spiritual senses. God silences comfort, so his whisper becomes impossible to ignore any longer. He knows strength grows where comfort ends, and greatness begins where fear shakes. The unknown is not dark. It is just unlit potential waiting for faith's flame. You will look back and recognize the discomfort as the turning point of everything. Your pain will eventually reveal purpose, and your confusion will transform into clarity. God is not done. He is just beginning the version of you heaven recognizes. The future you are walking toward cannot be built with yesterday's comfort bricks. You did not lose. You evolved. You did not break. You were remade. Your old life ends where your true calling begins, in unfamiliar territory. Faith grows roots in places comfort never dares to step foot. God removes comfort to remove illusions, and illusions keep destiny locked inaccessible. You cannot transform while protecting the version of yourself God is trying to upgrade. Embrace the discomfort, because inside it lies the blueprint of your divine assignment. God uses the unknown to stretch your spirit and strengthen your identity in him. Where comfort dies, calling breathes, and destiny finally opens its sealed gates. Your new season requires courage, not certainty, and trust, not predictable paths. God is aligning your steps with a future your comfort never prepared you for. Do not fear the unfamiliar. God lives where your understanding ends completely. The journey hurts, but stagnation kills, and comfort was slowly suffocating you. You are stepping into a chapter where nothing is safe, but everything is purposeful. God removes temporary stability to anchor you in eternal truth that never shifts. You are becoming someone comfort could never allow. Awakened, fearless, spiritually authoritative. Do not seek your old security. Seek the God who is leading transformation. The unfamiliar path is not punishment. It is prophetic preparation for destiny. If comfort was still present, you would never move, never rise, never awaken. God is saying, stop fearing what I removed. Start embracing what I am revealing. The breaking was mercy, the loss was redirection, and the discomfort was love. A new you is emerging, shaped not by comfort, but by calling. The unknown is not empty. It holds the version of you God always saw. Walk forward, even trembling, because faith only operates where comfort refuses to go. The next chapter requires obedience, not explanations, trust, not understanding. You are not lost. You are being led beyond the limits of your old life. The comfort zone is gone, but God is here, and that is enough. Growth begins where comfort ends, and God is waiting exactly there for you. Now breathe deeply. Step forward. Your destiny is finally awake and watching you move. Thank you for watching until the end. Like and subscribe to support this channel's mission. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ be with all of you. Amen.